Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Microsoft Teams. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. My name is Noor Basha, a Marketing Director at Winwire Technologies, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we start, quickly I would like to highlight a couple of logistics items. So we are recording the session and we'll be sharing the presentation as well as recording in next 24 to 48 hours. We will take up the questions at the end and request you to post in your questions in the chat window. So with that, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to today's session speaker, my colleague, Mr. Akash. Akash is a technical architect at Winwire Technologies, and he brings over 13 years of experience in the IT industry. He specialized in managing, designing on-prem as well as hybrid-based solutions on SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure. So with that, let me hand it over to Akash to quickly run us through the agenda. And over to you, Akash, from here.
Yeah, thanks, Noor. Hello, everyone. This is Akash here, presenter for today. Before we go ahead and see each and every aspect of what we're going to present, I just wanted to formally set across the agenda. First, we'll be looking at just a brief overview of Teams. We'll not spend a deep dive. We've already done a session on that. And next, we'll go ahead with what are the latest updates which are released on Teams or they are in the process of release from an organizational perspective. Then we'll follow it up with Skype for Business and its future along with Teams, and spend some time on that, followed by a couple of demos which we have to show just how useful Teams can be for collaboration and productivity purposes. And then we'll follow it up with question and answers if anyone has that. So coming to the Teams overview, I think this basically is a one-stop image which gives like a 30,000 feet overview about the Teams as a platform. Teams is basically a hub for the teamwork and collaboration where it interacts with several other applications, be it for communication, any third-party apps, bots, and primary base, that is Office apps, which is very neatly integrated. I will not spend much time on this slide as we have already covered the overview in our past webinar. We'll share the link. It's already on this slide where you can just check out what we have given as an overview, and it also has how we can leverage the bots in terms of getting the information and process automation using that across the organization. So next is, now that we have gone through the overview, we just wanted to highlight as to why Teams are very important as a platform in an organization, in an enterprise organization. It basically brings about, it's like an aggregator of all the tools which you can think of in terms of collaboration, productivity, process, and whatever drives the organization forward. The base of it all lies in Office 365, which is the base on which the Teams are built. So it has deep integrations with each of the Office 365 products, be it normal Office apps like Word, PowerPoint, or intelligent apps like Power BI, Power Apps, Flow, or management apps like Planner, Tasks, StuffUp, etc. Along with that, Teams has the capability of opening up whole new gamut of third-party applications where you can think about of a product which can be used across the organization and which can be hosted like any app store on Teams store for it to be utilized across the organization. As Microsoft, really calls Teams as a platform, which is the product. Uh, Without any of these apps, or integrations, Teams, is nothing on its own. So as I said earlier, it's like an aggregator of apps, which really brings the power of Teams in one single location. It is built on a secure and compliant infrastructure of Office 365 as a base. So anything which is applicable to Office 365, Teams is going to support it. If they're not supporting it today, they will eventually, upgrading that in the next quarter or two. External integrations, is again very much possible with organizational specific apps as well. It's not only partner applications. All the external organizations applications which you can think of, like ERP solutions or DevOps or Azure as well, it can be easily integrated. And there are already around 250 apps on the store, which are either released by Microsoft or internal service vendors, where you can consume and you can really bring about the power of collaboration and process onto Teams. Vertical solutions, when we talk about vertical solutions, it is basically industry specific. So like in healthcare, if we think about, there can be like a patient app integration where it is very domain specific, and you have to, it's very domain specific, and it's in terms of patient and apps, uh, to get the information, process it with the medical ERP, and tie it up with the backend so that it can be processed. For retail, when we think about retail, we can think about like a shift management application where the frontline workers can log in their time, log in, log out times, and then the salary processing and all of that. So those can actually be integrated with Teams, and we can have conversations on that. You can have follow-ups on that, and a whole lot of collaboration in terms of that as well. So basically, all such solutions which we can think of actually cuts across the domains, and they are really industry independent or can be industry specific. Coming to the basic building blocks, right? So what are actually Teams made of? When we think about Teams, what do we think of? First is it's like a chat-based application, right? So basically, what do? We type some message, gives up commands and actions. How do we make those conversations intelligence? So we can do those put the intelligence in the conversations through bots and connectors. Using the power of Microsoft Graph, there are a whole lot of updates which have been made for bringing really granular customization onto Teams. Few of which, which I can tell is like provisioning the entire Teams channels and groups in a automatic way, where just on, like, say if I just have to type let us create a new Teams channel, it will automatically sense it, and it will prompt you to create a new channel. So you can put all these intelligence through bots and Microsoft Graph. Also, there is a support now for creating and basically recording all the conversations, doing data processing on that, and using Graph to basically push it to other Office apps and other ERP through web APIs and other exposing methodologies. Tabs have been always there in Teams, so they are much more powerful now, which we will see in further slides, where we can do customizations. Along with that, Teams will also be platform independent, so that it will be fully compatible on Android, on iOS, or web app, or on the desktop as a Windows application. Along with that, at the back end, it gives the option for the enterprise developers through all these scenarios which you discussed to develop apps which cater to the entire organization, along with the IT admin folks as well. Because it is built on Office 365, it has really granular policies, setup configurations, and capabilities, which we will see in these slides, so that we don't have to worry about compliance or any other risks associated with storing data on Teams. Third-party apps as well. It's much more process-oriented now. We will see that in further slides where users or third parties can upload the apps to their app store and how it will be consumed on the organizational side. Having this knowledge, now let's go one level deep as to understand what is new in Microsoft Teams this year. When I say this year, it's like till today. So some of these are really very deep in nature, so we can have further sessions, or we'll be happy to help you in case you need any further information. Please contact us and we'll be happy to talk further on that. We have all the required level of expertise and knowledge on this. So when we talk about authentication, one major update in Teams is that Azure AD is open to apps on Teams. So any Teams apps which are built or any team apps are added as a tab, they can make use of the single sign-on of Azure AD, so that when we context switch tabs, like say if we are going from the chat tab to an app tab in Teams, we don't have to log in again and again. So it'll be like a seamless experience, and it'll take the current context and basically display the tab, which we will see in our demos. Again, the native tabs. So Teams on its own usually had the capability to link. We could link. Now it basically has the ability to display the apps in the tabs as a standalone Teams app as well, without much effort. So we will see that in the demo as well, and we can really leverage this capability to enhance the capability, the context switching, as well as the ability of the other applications across the organizations to be assimilated into Teams without any issues. Message actions, well, message actions, again, as I said, it makes use of bots and Azure API to put intelligence into the conversations. I have a few screenshots which you will see in the first slide, which will highlight more on that capability, and the new ways to publish app, which we will see further. So let's take a look at message apps, message actions. So message actions is nothing but, without changing the context, right? When we are having any conversation, like say if there is a project manager and a lead who is having a conversation as to what are they going to propose in terms of the agile story or the user stories to the customer for the next sprint. There is capability for Teams to integrate, like say, in this particular scenario, we integrate Jira for customer locations and issue tracking. We have Azure DevOps to track the project-related tasks, and also we have Planner, which basically integrates team-level tasks within the team, so that it can be tracked to closure. Now, how do they interact, with each other on Teams? Is like say if a lead says, okay, we have to raise a request on Jira, or we have to create a task on Azure, or we have to replan few actions on Planner, they don't have to go anywhere. So basically, depending on the conversation, they can stay in Teams and they can either create a task on Planner or an issue in Jira or a work item in Azure. It is that simple. And and this is not only these apps, it's like any app which across the organization which can be brought into the intelligence of the message conversation is open for this particular scenario. So this is just one particular example. This can be spanned across apps. Out of these, what do we basically see? So we can take actions directly from any message in Teams. Now here there is just creating a task. So a task can kick off a workflow or send a message to an external system, or append the result of the action to the thread. Like say if an issue is created, there will be a screenshot of the issue, and the person can take action inside the Teams app itself. Next is just want to spend some time on the ISVs. So for third-party applications, we now have, which will be released in the next quarter, is the ability of Teams apps to be uploaded on Partner Center. Earlier, all Teams app had to be uploaded onto a separate Teams store. So there is the option now to publish the app like any other app on the Partner Center. So what advantage does it give is like the approval is pretty streamlined. So any verification or approval which Microsoft does on any third-party app now can be done from a single location. Also, there is the ability for adding more locales. So it can be like, say, there is an app in Chinese, it can be encoded in Chinese, and all the language files can be uploaded for that, along with English. So those features were not there earlier, now it is there. And also multi-user and Active Directory support. So basically, so like say if a developer or a service account is being used to access the Partner Center, now it can be accessed using multiple accounts. So these features were not there earlier. This will be released in the next quarter for the Partner Center on Teams. So just giving a few screenshots as to what are the changes. So here we already had all these custom applications which could have been uploaded. So now along with an Office extension, SharePoint and Power BI, you also have Teams. Rest of the steps are almost the same for any other app. So this is just like an option which is added in the Partner Center. So talking about extensibility, so the goal of Microsoft is to have same experience across multiple devices, be it Android or iOS or web or desktop. So that is the goal and which the Teams is also moving ahead. Similarly, user experience is consistent in terms of the UI, as well as integration with other web-based apps, which we will see in our demos. So we already had chatbots which spanned across devices. The experience between a mobile versus a desktop app in Teams was pretty much different in terms of the ability, like say context switching. When it happened between tabs, it used to open separate apps. Like say if I had to go to Power BI or Power Apps, when I clicked it from Teams, it used to take me to that app. So the goal for Microsoft is to basically change that particular experience, and it should be consistent across. So they have introduced message extensions, which we just saw, and the collaboration tabs, which we will see in our demos. Power of platform to mobile as well. This is again from a customization perspective. It's end users get a consistent experience. Developers can basically build it for a particular application, and then can be reused in Teams, which we will see in the demo, which will help to cut across the development times. And there is full support for separate SDK for Teams tabs and manifestation capabilities. So this is which is similar to other app development. So we don't have to redo everything if we want to make a team specific apps. With respect to the backend IT, there are few policies which have been upgraded. I would like to spend just a couple of minutes for two important policies which have been released recently. Let me just quickly open up the browser and show it to you. So what you see on the screen is the app permission policies. So when we talk about app permission policies, Teams has really opened up, in terms of how the apps can be rendered to each and every user within the organization. So basically, policies can be now put till the user level, and it can be controlled via this particular option where how do we display the apps, whether we display all the Microsoft apps or third-party apps or tenant apps. So this is really very granular, and each of it can be defined by rules. So if you see in this location, there's just like one default rule which basically talks about all the apps which are enabled. Next is the setup policy. Setup policies are nothing but how do the apps render onto the Teams tab. Like when we add Teams, what are the apps which they need to see? What are the pins? Apps which can be pinned down. So all of this can be pretty much be displayed using Teams by creating all these policies and then going to the users and assigning them each and every policy which will be separate. So if you see here, I have a test account and I can actually filter out or assign each and every policy on the user level. So, it is that granular in nature already. There's one more feature which is not there here, that is side loading apps. So side loading apps is really useful for developers within the organization when they want to like test their apps, so that they can create a new team for developers and then apply these meeting the applications policies for those group and expose them. So it really opens up the possibilities as to how do we control the flow of apps within the department of an organization. Again, Skype versus Teams. So Skype on its own is an excellent product, but Teams brings a lot more to the platform, including. So it's like Skype has literally become a subset of Teams, and we've already discussed the various capabilities which Teams offer. So I won't spend much time on this, but why do we need to move to Teams now is Skype for Business Online will be retired on July 31st, 2021. So Skype, whoever is using Skype for Business Online across organization need to plan for it right away. And beginning September 1st, that is 2 days from now, any new Office 365 customer who is onboarding onto Microsoft as a tenant will not have Teams, have Skype for Business, I'm sorry. They will only have Teams for communication and collaboration. So we have to plan the transition, or we must at least begin to plan the transition now. And there are multiple transitions paths available to suit the needs of an organization. We will be happy to help you in this transition story. You can reach out to us. We have already created blogs around it as to what are the initial steps which you can take if you want to transition from Skype for Business Online to Microsoft Teams. So with that, let me just quickly switch over to the demo. I will be giving a demo in two parts. So the first demo, let me just quickly show you and then you can go ahead. So the basic motive of this demo is to show you how we can reuse the apps, without changing much of the code and putting extra effort. So here we have a sample web part in Teams, which I'm just going to sample web part in SharePoint, which I'm just going to deploy on Teams, and see that there is not much change or difference in the UI as well as the experience. So here we have an app which I had built just for demo purposes. This is taking basically a React app based on React, which talks to the list in SharePoint and renders it in a table. Now, if you look here, there is a message which is displayed just to differentiate that this is on SharePoint. So this is a sample SharePoint web part. So let me just publish it. It is responsive in nature, so there is no problem with the resolutions. So how do we basically have this experience of a web part and not the entire SharePoint onto Teams? So when I go to tab, now this app has already been published as an app onto my Teams. So I just go click add an app and load for a second. So here we have it. So if you see, the same data is displayed onto the Teams tab, but what you see here is just a slight change in the header. Now this tab is actually on Teams. It is not coming from SharePoint, right? So think about the possibilities which can be achieved using this approach. So it can either be a SharePoint app, or it can be a web application, Angular app, or any other existing application, whether it's on Azure, which can be brought over to Teams with very slight modifications and can be used on Teams specifically, so that the experience is seamless for the end user. We have another example where I just wanted to demonstrate like an Office app, which can spawn across, again, applications. So here we have like a talent requisition approval form, which we had developed for an HR. So considering this is just an example app, so if an HR wants to onboard a person, what is that they're going to do? So this is just an app which just takes in the details and updates and saves it to SharePoint at the backend. So here we see this is a read-only view. Now you see here this is on Power Apps. You see here the tab here, it's on now SharePoint, the same experience. Let me just go ahead and create an app on SharePoint. So I'll just save it. So you see here that it's saved, and now if I go ahead and refresh the app here, you see the same here as well as now if I go to Teams, we can surface the same app with the same data on Teams as well. So another powerful feature is basically the use of all the hardware configurations, but we can show you the demos and all the other cool stuff which we have done. You will be happy to help you in case you want any clarifications or any further information, in this particular demos or anything on the story of Teams evolving around the Office 365 environment. With that, I think I will conclude this presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to.
Hey, thanks, Akash, for quickly taking us through the Teams, intro of Teams, some of the new announcements, also helping us to take us through a quick demo. I have a couple of questions. The first question coming from Mark is where he's asking what is the amount of effort that is required for repurposing an app? Let's say if you are talking about Angular app to Teams, what is the basic time required or effort required?
Okay, so let me just quickly show you, the demo which we had done and just the change which we did to surface that content. So it's like any React or Angular app. So it will be having a manifest file as well as the code file. So in the manifest file, what we have to do is we just have to add the supported host as Teams tab. So that of course there's an underlying requirements for the version of PFX and other Angular components which are required. So we add this as Teams tab, and then we go to the code, the actual code where we render the content. So here we just do slight modifications by adding the Teams context. So what happens is basically when it loads and renders on the init method, and this is again like code level. So in the init method, it will just see it is Microsoft Teams and then render it accordingly. So rest of the rendering, if you see, there is no change. It is all same. So here we put the Teams, else it is SharePoint. So we can add few more contexts and then render it on Teams.
Thanks, Akash. So I know we are running out of time, but I have one more last question to take before we take another questions offline. So can we have information rights management applied to chats on Teams?
Yes, so information rights management and the policies of retention are basically driven via Office 365. So in Office 365 retention policies, there is an option now to set it for Teams, specifically for chats. We can set it depending on how long do you want it to, whether it is 3 years, 5 years, or whatever duration is required. But that is specifically for chats. Other underlying, as we know that Teams is an aggregator of platforms, like say if there is any document policy which needs to be retained, which needs to be put into, those retention policies will be specific to SharePoint. Like say for a team, it is SharePoint for storing the documents. So any SharePoint specific retention policy will be applicable on that. So similarly for other applications, like we just saw Power Apps, so for those also the retention policies will be applicable for that particular platform.
Great. Thanks, Akash, for taking up those questions. Again, thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I hope you find it useful. If there are any questions, please send it across to us at marketing@winwire.com and we will take them offline. Thanks everyone and have a good day. Thank you, Akash.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.